and welcome back to the next episode of the Health One podcast. I have the lovely Laura Patricia Martin with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me and being patient with all the time zone mix-ups.
I know we've been having a mare. I totally get it though, going from Europe to Bali, and now you're in Dallas, isn't it?
I am in Dallas, yeah.
Yeah. I literally have a world clock on my phone so that I can connect with all the different time zones all over the world. And we still sometimes get it wrong, so that's okay. But I suppose, do you want to take me from the top? I suppose, give me a little bit introduction of yourself. So currently, you are a trauma dating specialist, but I think I started following you when we were kind of more aligned. Well, I think we are aligned, and we'll get into it. I think we have a lot of similarities in our journey, but I suppose with our nutritional content, yours is mainly focused on gut health and anxiety, and you've kind of beautifully evolved into trauma and dating, and it's definitely it kind of brings out little qualities or little, I don't know, little goals or inspirations or kind of things where I want to see myself get to as well. So it's really nice to see that transition isn't something that seems so bizarre, I'd say, maybe because the connections are there. And we really want to talk today about like chronic illness and trauma and how your relationships affect that and your mindset and how safe you feel in your body and everything. So take it away.
Nice. I mean, you basically gave my whole spiel. I went through all of that. Out of it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I started this whole thing with nutrition. So my mom had unexpectedly passed away from addiction at the age of 22. I was 22. She was 52. And I ended up running away to Asia. And a 2-month trip ended up being the quantum leaping soul alignment, accidentally becoming an entrepreneur 6-year stint. It was not the plan,
Wow.
right? Like, but I had been journaling at that time because I have journaled pretty much every day since then. I'm just like, I need to figure my shit out. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm fucking this whole thing up. I have like notes in my phone from like 2013 of like, I don't think I'm going to make it to the age of 25. Like, I hope everyone knows how sorry I am. Like, I was so angry and I took that anger out on my body. And
Yeah.
so what happened at the age of 24 is I was in a domestically violent relationship. I was heavily using drugs and alcohol and overexercising and undersleeping. And it was one of those moments we had just had a physical altercation, me and my partner at the time, and I was contemplating taking my own life. And in that moment, what came fresh to me was just, I don't actually want to lose my life. I don't want to give this up. I just don't want, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. And so for some reason, that moment led me to nutrition. I don't know if you know IIM, but like I went to IIM. I was like, okay, let me get my butt off the floor. And it didn't right away get me from leaving that relationship, but it gave me a sense of purpose. I started
Yeah.
to learn about myself and learn like hundreds of different theories in that friggin' program. Like it is very broad. Um, but it started to give me this activation and like starting to believe in myself, which then led me to going to support groups like Al-Anon and Coda and going through the 12 steps and getting sober and, really looking at trauma bonding and codependency. And really, like, I didn't even know what codependency was at the time. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm addicted to this person and I can't leave and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, like this is an actual thing. Like I just thought I was broken and I didn't, like, this wasn't a conversation topic as it is now in the highlight of social media. Like this was so new back then, at least
Yeah.
in my world. And so I started finding my purpose. People, literally the day I kicked him out of my apartment, that was the day after my 25th birthday, was the day I got my first client for nutrition. And everything just happened from there, like total accidental entrepreneur. And I just kept studying. Like for me, my trauma response then, instead of drugs and alcohol, got into like science. Like I just love to study, and I am my favorite topic. So I like to study.
I love that.
So I just started to study everything about me. Why am I the way I am? What am I here to do? How can I dismantle this stuff? And really started to reprogram what it like for like straight out of that, then because my business was there, I created a trauma response business, which was my very successful gut health business. It was IBS anxiety, gut brain connection, neuroinflammation. I was very successful at it, made a global movement, event spaces, public speaking engagements. Like it was really good. Like I did it really well. And then I healed to a point that I wanted to come back to the States, move back to America. So it was about 6 years later. I felt safe enough, which sounds interesting, but I was like, I have all of this success. I have all this stuff. What is it worth if I'm not? This is when COVID started hitting and the second round was coming in. And I was like, what is it all worth if I'm single and I'm 26 hours away from my family? What is this worth? Like I have the most banging friendships and business and money and like things. And I kept like trying to achieve these certain outcomes. And I remember hitting a certain launch and getting the goal that I wanted and da 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 da. And I remember sitting in a certain cafe and shutting my laptop and being like, fuck, that feeling, like that feeling is still here. Like I'm still not satisfied, because even though my trauma response had shifted into a quote unquote healthier thing, just like my trauma response had moved into nutrition and I became orthorexic and highly obsessed with it and miserable to go out with, like I went that route. And then my business went that route. And then I finally realized in surrender, I was like, we cannot run this. Like, this isn't working anymore. And so, of course, my left brain, I was like, let's study trauma. Like, let's go back to school. Let's study trauma. Let's become a trauma support specialist. Like, learn all these different tools and strategies and what have you. And that's what kind of birthed 2.0 version of my company, coming back to the States. And I got I've been sitting on it for the last year, because it just, how you said, like before, just like, like I want to do this, like I want to get out of health. I want to do but like, I'm good at it. Like that means, starting another business, like, oh God, but like, I'm known for this. My ego's attached to this. Like I'm quote unquote successful, but I still was miserable, like I was happy, but like not miserable. Like I was just not satisfied. And so I went through a breakup. I moved back, met an amazing man, broke my heart. And when you're pushing a portal like that, it's like, never waste a good heartbreak, right? Like never waste it. And now I've learned my life, like nothing is by accident. Everything has always been for me. God has always intended me to walk this path, and that's all the different outlets. And so that's what led me to looking at like, oh, my own trauma is actually what led to my health issues. My trauma is from relationships. Oh, like hello. And I literally just posted on my stories right now, because I like got lost in a wormhole looking for a certain post that was about domestic violence. And then I'm looking at, and it was from like 2019, and I'm looking at the post, and it's like this like deep spiritual, like all about relationships, moody ass vibe, like so me now too. But like I'm looking at it, it's from 2019, and then it's like pivot to a turmeric latte recipe. And I'm like, so my girlfriend, so it's always been in you. And it's like, what? And I'm like, so it's always in this correlation that just like I didn't know was always there. And now that it's here, I'm like, oh, duh. Like, of course, duh. You're a double Libra. You love relationships. You love love. This is your purpose. This is the alignment. And it's just been quantum leaping in the last like 3 months since really stepping into it and embracing it and being like, oh, and I still use all the gut health stuff, because you need to have a stable metabolism to be able to handle trauma. Like if you don't have a stable body and nutrition, handling trauma is just not going to be like, it's going to keep bouncing around. But that's a very long-winded version of Laura Patricia Martin. Hi, everyone. What's up?
Mic drop. I love that so much. Honestly, like I said, there's so many aspects of that I see myself in, that I can relate to so much. And I love that you kind of started with nutrition, and that was like okay, what's going on in my body? And without even like what you mentioned as well about the conversations were not there at all. Only in the last, I would say 2 years, do I start to understand what's going on in my body. 2 years. And I would have thought at certain points that I really understood. I was like, yeah, got it now. This has worked. I've clicked this, but never fully actually getting to the root. And I think that's what started with me, was trying to get to the root. But then you get to one root is maybe metabolism. Another root is maybe to do with your hormones. I know the root is to do with your mindset, but it's like, you're never actually getting to the root if you've got unhealed trauma, if you're not addressing what's going on in your life. I have so much to unpack with that, but I also love how you mentioned about like finding purpose in like your struggle, basically, and how you can actually flip the script and not be a victim to what happened to you or be a victim to what's going on in your body. And I want to talk a little bit about chronic illness, I suppose, from coming from a place of having IBS. Was that your only diagnosis at the time, or is that what it started as and it evolved?
It started with that, and then they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me because I didn't have a period for 5.5 years. And so they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me.
Wow.
I didn't have PCOS. I didn't have any cysts. They couldn't figure out. I had zero estrogen in my body. My hair was falling out in clumps. And then I had mysterious rashes that took over my entire body. So it was fine. Like my breaking point as, what is it when you really love your looks? Whatever that's
Mm,
called. Beauty, vanity. That's the word I'm
yeah.
looking for. So the vanity won because everything else in my body I could hide. Everything else. You can hide your
Yeah.
IBS. You can hide your clumps of hair falling out because you do whatever. You can hide that you don't have a period because no one's freaking asking you that. You cannot hide the fact. And here's again, it was my 26th birthday, and I was delivering a speech to 100 freaking people about nutrition and mental health. And the rash that was hiding my entire body for the last 8 months decided to make its way up to my face. And I was like, I'm lying. Like, I can
Mm,
spit this stuff and I'm doing this stuff, but I'm doing this stuff in such an obsessive manner that I'm 45 pounds underweight. I don't have a period. I have panic attacks on the regular. I know there's inflammation all over my freaking body. My body temperature, I live in Thailand. It's 110 degrees and I'm cold. This is not okay.
oh,
Like,
yeah.
there were so many thyroid issues. My temperatures were all wrong and whacked. Like, my temperatures would go down after I ate. Like, it was all messed up. Like, no matter how
Mm,
quote unquote clean I was eating, how many supplements I bought, how many doctors I visited, how many naturopaths and there were so many things that I put my money into because I wanted to point the finger at anything else. And it wasn't until I sat down with my naturopath, God bless her cotton socks, Penny, and she looked at me and was like, "Do you want to talk about how your trauma and your depression and your anxiety is related to all of this?" And I literally looked at her and I went, "No." and I and I went and I did a parasite cleanse because I thought I could outsmart my body by doing something
Yeah.
very strategy based. Because I didn't, again, that wasn't the right question to ask someone that's in the midst of going through a
Yeah, of
shitstorm of
course.
life. But like that then sat on my shoulders. So then when this whole moment happened on my 26th birthday, it was, or maybe my 27th birthday, I have no idea, whatever. It was a birthday. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
it was when that happened, it was like this whole encompassing, like I just heard Penny's voice in my head. And I was like, shit, she planted that seed and now I have to look at it.
yeah.
And that's kind of what perpetuated this whole I need to surrender. I need to gain weight. I need to stop doing HIIT workouts. I need to stop obsessing about gut health because that's living in a fear state, thinking I can outsmart this thing. Like, no,
Mm.
so it led its way because you're malnourished. Your organs are going to
Mm.
start to shut down when you're malnourished.
Yeah, I think that's so common, and I see that a lot with clients. I think that's why I'm studying this at the moment, because I feel that this is an aspect of my business I need to incorporate, basically, because we can get to a certain point with all the strategies, with all the lifestyle changes, the supplements, but there's still that missing piece. There is still that driver of them feeling unsafe in different aspects of their life. And from my own experience as well, I've had moments similar to you with the rash, and I would have had skin issues all of a sudden. I would have had always oily skin my life, and then all of a sudden I've got this dry skin and got this. I would say it was kind of like eczema,
Mhm.
and inflammation throughout my body, shutting down, fainting, all this kind of stuff. And you get to a point where you're like, no one can help me, so you have to help yourself. No doctors can help you. There's no explanation on Google. There's nothing that can logically explain what's happening to you. Like what you mentioned, so funny about like trying to find a parasite or something. Like there must be something in my gut health. There must be something in my hormones that's dysfunctional. But I suppose what's important to know is we probably didn't know the connection with trauma at that point in time. Like, so with my experience, I would have dissociated from it to the point that it was a blocked out memory. So for me to connect that was was not something that I was able to do, was not something my body was allowing me to do, let's say. And I think, like what you mentioned there, you're kind of like, okay, I need to fucking face this shit and I need to help myself through this instead of looking for someone externally to kind of figure that out for you. But it's not easy.
You know, and something even you touched on, or like what came fresh when you were talking, was I understood inflammation from food. I understood that to a T. I could list off all the foods. I could tell you what parts of your body. I can tell you which one's de-inflamed, which ones you should be eating for what organ you want to. Like, I could list that front and back. I knew it because that was my social media at the time. I did not understand that my trauma and my thoughts were actually provoking that inflammation. Like, it didn't freaking matter how many eggs I ate for my fucking vitamin D content to downregulate and make my brain shrink and get my, serotonin up and all the kind of things. That didn't freaking matter. The fact was, I was in a domestically violent relationship and I had yet to process the sexual traumas that I had prior to that from college, the loss of my mother, the death of a friend, the abandonment things. Like, there were so many things to unpack.
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares about your egg? Like, no, like, yes, it's cool and it's definitely important and it's definitely something I harp on and you harp on. Like, we value that, but it's like, you can't just use that as a bypass, which is exactly what I was trying to do, being like, oh, but like the inflammation has to be from this. And it's like, no, baby girl, your life is an inflammation, and slowing down and surrendering to that is how we can actually speed up in life. And I know that sucks because you're not used to slowing down, and slowing down seems so freaking scary. But if you actually do that, your body is going to match that dance. And it's just that sacred pause kind of moment.
Yeah, I think it is important that we don't, I think I've gone down the road of being like, okay, none of the nutrition matters. Let's just focus on trauma. And I'm like, okay, no, all of it does matter. Let's
Yes.
not get ahead of ourselves. Let's calm down. But it's not as like what you said. It's about going to the real root of it. Well, what's actually driving this inflammation? Because I guess if you think about an example, like, how come sometimes I'm triggered by something and sometimes I'm not? What's the explanation of that? And I suppose even if you think about digestion, what I do with clients is I work on the foundations first, rather than going and looking at triggers first, rather than going and looking at FODMAPs first. Because if your body is in a dysregulated state, there's no fucking way in hell you're going to figure out what your triggers are, if there is any triggers. And what I'll often find is we'll get to a point where there are actually no triggers, not for all of them. Obviously, for IBS, I can't eat my beans. That's an issue, but we won't go into.
That's the thing that just keeps rolling,
Yeah. We just have to accept in life. But I think it's really important to understand that although it is scary, it's also very fucking empowering to know that you can help yourself, and to know that you don't need to stay, I'd say, in this story. And that's what I found really lovely about some of your posts I've been reading, just about the kind of things that you identified with, or the version of yourself that you stayed stuck within and kind of transitioned into this much more open, vulnerable, healed, bold, brave bitch, as you would say. Do you want to, I love how you said about you were journaling and journaling and journaling and journaling. Would you say that journaling is the biggest, I suppose, tool that you used, or would there have been multiple tools?
I mean, so coming out of the state of thinking that I was doing life wrong, I thought I had to live my life like Tony Robbins. I thought I had to wake up, do a cold plunge, breathe in a certain way, do my breath of fire, get my sunlight at this time, look in this direction, sniff the color 9, whatever. Like, who knows? Like, I thought I had to check all these things. And even now, like, I don't journal okay, yes, I do, but that's because it's my creative outlet. I don't do it because I need to do it. I genuinely just have a thought, and I'm constantly learning and evolving, again, on my favorite subject, about myself, or how a podcast applies, or a client that I have, or a program that I'm running, and something clicks and I'll write down a quote and then I just riff on that. Or if I'm going through something, I know when I'm avoiding journaling, which is beginning of my breakup, I'm like, I don't really want to look at you. But then my thought process is always, and this is what got me off that floor when I was 24. I was like, I'm going to write a New York bestseller one day. I'm going to change the world when it comes to something. I don't know what it is. Since I was 4 years old, I said, I'm going to change the world. I live my life with a story to tell. What story am I learning in this? And this is what gets me to my journal of, again, I wouldn't know half the things that I know now that I'm using for content had I not written about what my thought processes were while I was going through them. I could have just bypassed. I could have just been like, "Duh, duh, 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 let me do these things. Let me answer these 5 questions." But it was like a total truth unravel of what my soul was saying. And so now it's just like I can go back and I can refer to these things, but it's one of the main tools. But the biggest one is I ask myself every morning, what do you need today? Not what do you have
Mm,
to do? What do you, with the checklist? Did you make sure you meditated? Did you make sure you got on your knees and prayed to God? Did you make sure you got your
yeah,
sunlight? Did you, like, yes, these are things that I naturally do, but I'm still going to survive if I don't, whereas
mm,
before it's kind of like stepping on the scale where it was like, oh, I didn't get to meditate, therefore today's going to suck. And it's like
yeah,
that I didn't even realize that wasn't working for me. But that doesn't work because I was then starting my day off at a deficit instead of going. And sometimes my days are heavier. Some days are like today where I'm just watching Modern Love all day. Like, I don't know, but like they're different. And so it's like the one question I ask, right? But like I have been praying every time I get up in the morning. I am a very faithful person and I'll
Mhm.
pray. And then I ask myself, like, what do you need today? And what's the one thing that will help you fulfill that need? You're not going to be able to get a freaking 4 hour morning routine today. You have a meeting at 8 a.m. But what's the one thing you can get? Okay, you can sit on the patio and get sunlight in your eyes. You can go on a
Sunlight,
walk
yeah.
with a friend. Yeah, like maybe you can't hit all of them in this moment, but you're not failing. So it's like just simply asking your question before you jump in and start doing someone's magical morning routine. Can you actually tap into your feminine and go, what do I need today? What's the
Yeah.
one thing I can do to do that? And there you can set yourself up for success instead of failure, which then gets the momentum running for the rest of the day.
I love that so much. I really, really resonate with that. I've definitely done the whole hustle culture of like, you need to get up at 5 a.m., you need to do this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And the fucking guilt and the shame that you can't do what these people are doing. I'm never going to be as successful as this person because I can't get out of bed. Even though I'm getting out of bed at 7 o'clock, I still can't get up at 5 a.m., which means I've missed doing this technique and doing this and doing 50 pages of reading and then journaling. And then you just get so overwhelmed by it all. And I love what you said is like, what do I actually need to do today? So a thing that surprises a lot of people about me is I don't have a morning routine either. I just decide, okay, what does my morning look like today? Okay, do you know what? It looks sunny outside, so I'm gonna go for a walk. Or maybe I'm not in the mood to go for a walk. I might go to a cafe, start some work. And maybe I'll do my meditation in the afternoon. Maybe I'll do some Reiki in the evening. Maybe I'll do whatever. And obviously, I think we're probably a little bit more privileged given that we have the kind of entrepreneur structure to our days. Obviously, people have 9 to 5s and they do need to change things a little bit to be able to flow, let's say. And I do think that for coming through your healing journey, there's a lot to be said that's very different from where we are now, let's say, that having consistent regulation of your nervous system by building a habit of daily meditation or daily journaling or whatever could be very well something that they need at that moment in their life. But I think there's a lot to be said about, do you actually need these things or are you just doing that because other people told you to do them? And also very important question of what am I avoiding right now? Am I avoiding doing the thing that my body needs most right now because I'm people pleasing or because I'm in a rush or because I'm whatever? Um, and yeah, I think that's really, really important for coming through reconnecting with your body, let's say, because you're very similar to myself, that you would have spent a lot of years suppressing and a lot of years at war with yourself, really internalizing how the world has treated you or things that have happened to you instead of being like, hang on, if people are not treating me well, why can I not treat myself well? Why can I not be that friend to myself? Why not can I not give that love to myself? And I think that's really what happens with women. Well, I won't even just generalize with women, but I think that's what's happened in my experience and in reading and in working with clients and stuff is that um, maybe it's to do with diet culture, maybe it's to do with a whole lot more, but we definitely internalize this and take it out on our body and we body check, we put ourselves down, we lack confidence in a lot of areas, and we hold ourselves back because we are barely surviving, never mind wanting to feel like we're actually thriving. And this is a part of the nervous system that a lot of people don't really connect with, is that you actually can feel like you're thriving at a point in your life. You don't have to be in that just barely surviving mode. And I had a question today. It's actually from my podcast that I'm doing on nervous system, but I suppose it's relevant. How do you start healing your trauma without investing and paying for therapy and stuff like that? I'm like, why do you not want to invest in yourself? Like, you deserve to invest in yourself. You've done lots of coaching and mentorships and different things like that. Like, how valuable, just for anyone listening, would you say that is for you?
I mean, it's so bad. I want to touch on a point that you covered prior to that, and
Yeah.
then I'll get into the value of that, because I don't ever want to bypass people stepping into that thriving and hearing you and I talk, because we're at the stage that we're going from good to great, right?
Yeah.
But there is a point where the checklists and a needing to like have things in order and having a sense of control and having a structure, that's the part where you're still in survival mode that you do need, right? Like that is why the checklists, why I looked at Tony Robbins, why I looked at the people that I admired, and I was like, well, I'm going to do all these kind of things. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to da da da. Because when you're in the beginning stages of healing your trauma, having a sense of control and having a routine is so freaking important. And if you just go into this willy-nilly part of like where we're at now, and I wouldn't even call it willy-nilly, it's just feminine flow, that's when you have intuition and trust. But
Yeah.
you're not there yet if you're in survival mode, and that's totally okay. Can you give yourself the compassion that you pray for and understand that there are different phases of healing your trauma? You're going to go from survivor, which is that badge of honor. We wear it with pride. We all have it. It's like I carried that shit for like 2 years. I was like, look at what I did. Oh, look at that star. No, 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 no. Like I was so proud of it. And it was in every conversation I had. I wore that. And sometimes we get irritated by this. And again, we have to give people the compassion that we pray for, because when we are survivors, that is the proudest thing that we have, and we wear that. And then we go into this whole like healing phase, and it starts to just become a badge on, like, if you ever had like Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts and you have a little badge on your little sweater thing, and it's like, it's just one of the things, but it's still there. And then you go into thriving, where it's like, even now that I'm in Dallas, like people never knew my story until I started to talk about relationships. No one, like I don't talk about it. It's not a thing. It doesn't come up in conversation. It's just like,
Yeah.
this is me now. They're more concerned about why I was living in Thailand than anything else. And I'm like, it's a really long story. You should listen to this podcast. But like it's not a part. And there's different stages. So again, give the compassion that you pray for. Understand that if you are doing those checklists and you're in that survival mode, that is freaking perfect. But this is where mentorship comes in, because they snap you out of that. Because once you get out of survival mode where you feel like you have to do it on your own, you are, scrolling the internet, you're doing whatever, it's kind of like the shame. You're in that kind of also the shame of it, where it's like, I'm only listening to podcasts. If you truly can't afford anything, that's where like I couldn't afford anything. I was making 17 grand a year as a teacher in Thailand. Like I didn't have money to invest in therapy. Like there was a thing, but I wanted to save my own life. Like I knew this wasn't just I just shared this on my story. I'm like, I knew, and I go through everything. How do I want to tell this to my daughter one day? I don't have a daughter, but maybe eventually I will, hopefully. But like the one that I maybe will have, how do I want to tell this story? Right. And so if you take that stance where it's like, for me, for building my business, for my health now, like I'm not saying put yourself in debt and dysregulate yourself, but your life is the one freaking thing you have. Why would you not be going all in? Why would you not figure out what you have? I've had people sell a car so that they could work with me. I've had people pick up jobs. Like I've had people in the Philippines sell certain things. Like they've gone out of their way because it meant something to you. It's like, and it's not to push yourself into dysregulation, because I've also done that where like, I'm like, I need this to save me. And if I don't, I will die. And nothing will stick when you're in that capacity, because you're coming from a space of lack. So work on that first. If you're in that space, podcasts, books, tap into that, do your own thing. They do have free therapy. Like they have different things. Like I went to Coda, I went to Al-Anon. Like those are free. Not like, yes, you have to be at a certain capacity, but it's like, I was definitely like, I remember stepping into my first meeting and I couldn't even speak because I had, blunt force trauma to my head. And I was just like sitting there. All I said was, hi, my name is Laura Martin. And I just started crying because it was the only place that I could unfold. But that was free, right?
Yeah.
They have churches that you can go to. Like there are resources if that's where you're at. But knowing that if it's your own life and you want an expert or you want to align with someone where it's at, like there is such thing as good debt, and your life is worth that good debt. Always. And so it's really recalibrating on that. But meet yourself where you're at. Give yourself the compassion that you pray for. Money always comes back. Time we never get back. If we're stuck in survival mode and we're stuck in trauma and we're dating these people and we're doing these things and we're acting out of addictions and trauma responses, like you're never going to get that time back. You will always be able to make more money. You will always, there are a billion ways to make $1 billion. Like it just is. And that might piss you off, but once you get out of survival mode, you'll see that that is actually true, right? Like I've donated plasma. I've had side teaching jobs. I had side cooking jobs. I would do Kickstart projects. I would do nannying. I would do driving, delivery, food service. Like you do things for something that you matter, or it's something that matters, right? Like it's just the way it is. So it's really choosing that, like, how do you want to spend your time? And yeah, it might take getting uncomfortable and having to work a few extra hours or doing something. But like, if you're not willing to look at the free things, and they have a lot, but if like getting into like one of our spaces or things like that is just out of reach, like there's so many free resources, pending what range and scope that you're at, like churches, Al-Anon, Coda, podcasts, books, like that's just an excuse. That is just an excuse if that's what you're saying.
I love that. I guess people might not realize how much they are worth. And I think I definitely didn't realize that until I had like rock bottom moments. I think sometimes it
Oh,
takes
even in my rock bottom moments, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've had a few moments where I wouldn't necessarily say that I've hacked self-worth or I have good self-esteem. It was more so that like I can't do this anymore. I need to do something that is going to change the way that I live, to change the way that I think, change how I feel in my body at the end of the day. And some people don't realize that that is something that they can do. Like you can get to this place where you don't have to stay in this struggle. And I suppose you're, like you mentioned now, kind of telling your story. Is that how you kind of became or kind of evolved into the dating side of things?
Yes, honestly, it's been on my heart for over a year and a half. Like I've been wanting to talk about it. I like if I the questions that started to come in with my mentor was around like, what do people normally come to you for? And I was like, well, gut health, but like, well, I'm over it. And then like, but realistically, like my friendships or conversations when I'm out at a bar or like when I'm meeting someone, like what is that? Before someone knows my label, what's the conversation that people are coming to me and just naturally arises? Always in my entire life, it's been relationships, always.
Wow.
And so I looked at it and I was like, well, duh, we're in double Libra. We love love. We love flirting. We love dating. We love beautiful things. Like very much so me. And then my breakup was a catalyst of that. Like that's when I started my podcast. And I was like, again, a timestamp in history. I want this to be a thing that I can refer back to whenever I need it. Not that I have ever once listened to a podcast of my own, but like going back and like it just was that kind of portal. And then people saw it. People care, money, sex, power, like these are things. And it just kind of, I was blindly leading myself with faith that this would work out. And again, it like goes back to whatchamacallit, and like kind of what you were talking about earlier and like what we were talking about is like you're your best ROI. Like I know I'm the best worker. I know I show up for everything first. I know if I truly believe in something, the comeback will come. And so it's just kind of stepping into that is what also propelled that, being like, if not me, then who at the end of the day? And if this is on my heart, my community, like I was so scared. I was like, who's going to move from gut health? And I had the clients that were in my IBS. So I have a program called Maven's Metabolism. I had a client, like I have a few of them actually, went through each one of my programs from that, like after it. And she's like, I came to you for IBS and all of a sudden, and she's a mother, right? And she's in sacred singlehood. And she's like, and all of a sudden I'm in this like single girl, like, because it was like this evolution. She's like, because it is an evolution. You understand your body and now you want to understand your brain and your soul, your commitments and your attachments. It only, to me, obviously, because that was my journey, it obviously makes sense to my community that is their journey as well.
Yeah. I love how you combine the spirituality and the science as well. That's just a gal after my own heart. Because I think it's so important. Like it really is important of like having hope in something more than you and trusting in magic and kind of seeing how if you're not living in alignment with yourself or with your purpose, that's only going to get you to a certain point with healing, with living a good life, I suppose, or living an abundant life. And I think that's something that a lot of people still have the kind of reservations about with spirituality, and like it's all science, but it's absolutely not. And that's what I fucking love about Bali, is that I'm really diving in the deep end with energetics, with Reiki, with Kundalini, with there's even like some things I'm going to look at with Tantra and stuff. And I just really think, yeah, woo, spicy.
I love it.
But I think it's just so important, like you said, this evolution, that we don't need to stop at a point. And I think similar to yourself, that we had this kind of like, okay, now I get gut health, now I get this topic, now I get this, but it's multifaceted. There's so many aspects of us that we can work on that get us to be like the best version of ourselves, and like feeling on our authentic self. And I love what you mentioned, the unattached woman. Would you please describe for my listeners what the unattached woman is for you?
So the unattached woman is actually a woman that doesn't, because we often think being attached as is a weakness when it's just a human survival mechanism. But when we're attached to external circumstances is when we lose ourselves. So the unattached woman is, she knows it's safe to attach to another because she's safe within herself. She is a living, walking, breathing, embodied sanctuary. She is safe for others to land, but she also is safe to attach into another. So I say unattached because a lot of us have this like, I'm hyper independent and I do everything on my own, and it gets warped. But an actually unattached woman knows that it's safe to fall into another. That is actually a human survival mechanism. And from there, we can bloom, we can blossom, because it's not that I'm looking for external validation. It's not that I'm happy only because you've chosen me. She knows that she chooses her life. She rises. She's the one that's out there being like, I'm a magnet for wealth. I'm a magnet for more orgasms that there will ever be. I am a walking attraction for the best health of my life. And I'm unattached to if they go wrong. I'm unattached
Yes.
for if they shake and if they waver, if they do these kind of things, because I'm safe no matter what.
And that's such a shift from the control. With when your life is ruled by trauma, when your nervous system is so dysregulated, you need control, whether it's from an eating disorder, whether it's from addiction, whether it's from scrolling on your fucking phone. Like, they can be such low level control mechanisms or distraction mechanisms to help you cope, that getting you from that place to feeling unattached and just surrendering to what is truly freeing. Like, oh my God, the word free, I never understood what it meant until I started doing this work, until I started really connecting with myself, really going deep, asking myself what I needed. And like, just having, I think what happened when I first started manifesting and stuff was that I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this, this, and this, and this. And then what happened was some of them would work and some of them wouldn't happen. And I'm like, I'm getting rejected by the universe now, so I'm not going to ask for what I really want for, or I'm going to kind of spin it in a different way. But just in case it doesn't happen, then I won't be rejected. But it's like, just surrender, like be brave enough to ask for what you want for, whether that is with manifestation, whether it is for a raise, whether that is what you want in dating. Just be brave enough, but also don't take it personally and as a reflection of yourself if things don't go to plan. I think that's so important. And I love how you bring that into dating, but like just be you, just go. I think a lot of people understand of like, just be yourself in dating, but they're not actually being themselves.
No, they're being a version of themselves that thinks will get chosen, and then they're wondering why relationships are not satisfied or dating is hard. It's like, because you're not being yourself, you're morphing yourself into being this version of you. I don't want to be too much, I don't want to be attached, I don't want to be vulnerable, I don't want to, because we're all in this shell. Like, there is no shortage of meeting people out there anymore. It's a shortage of depth, a shortage of connection, a shortage of sustainability within relationships. Like, that's actually the scary point, because what if I love them so much they leave? Right. And this is why my breakup was the catalyst, because I loved this man. I still obviously do, like, so much so. And I don't regret a goddamn thing, because it's holy fuck, I could love that much, if not this, something better. Right. And it's like, I'm here to be that walking little organism of like, I loved with my whole heart without a fear in the world. I thought I was going to marry, like, all cups in, all feet in, my entire body in. And he chose to leave. And I'm fucking okay. Quantum leap that shit in 3 months. And like, create an entirely different business, and it's fine. And don't get me wrong, like I definitely have my sad moments. Today was one of them. Literally today I was like, we're just gonna watch Modern Love because that's what we're gonna do. But like I don't let it mean anything about it, you know? And it's like that fear of rejection. It's like, I'm so happy that I did love in that way. I'm so happy that I let myself feel that. And I think that
Mm,
also has to do with like, granted my background, like unexpectedly losing my mom to addiction and the people that I've loved. And, you know, I've experienced loss in a big thing where it's like, oh, like that didn't ruin me. So
yeah.
therefore, if I truly am the unbreakably bold woman, the sacred single woman, like this version of my, the walking, living, breathing, living sanctuary. If I truly am these things, then I'll be okay. You know, why
Mm,
would I, if
yeah.
I'm already going to be disappointed because I'm not manifesting what I want, but I'm disappointed where I'm at, but I'm not going to take the leaps because I'm afraid I'll get disappointed because therefore I'm rejected. It's like, huh? You're already disappointed. Like,
Yeah.
go do the thing and be okay because even if
Rejecting yourself.
exactly. Like, even if you don't get there, you will somehow land in the capacity of where you were meant to be. Doesn't mean you're going to
Yeah.
get what you want. God doesn't work that way. God is going to give
Yeah.
you the what he intends you to do, and you might not get it right now. And there might be a
Mm,
reason why, right? Like all
mm,
the times I was on my I actually just wrote a post on Friday around like grief and sitting there and being like, why me? Why this? Why her? Why? And then like you get to the point in your life and it's like, now I'm here, right? Like I'm here. I'm sad that my mom's 60th birthday is coming up, right? It's heartbreaking. My brother just had his first kid. He's married. His wife happens to have the same birthday as her. Like all these different things
wow.
that were made out of grief. And it still will bring you to your knees no matter how long it's been. And you can sit there and you can be like, why the fuck did all that happen? Why? And
Mm,
then you come to it and you're like, oh, because the life, my brother wouldn't have his kid if my mom still had her life. I wouldn't have my business if my mom still had her life. I wouldn't have this home, you know, like all these different things.
yeah.
And it's like never gonna know why your manifestation didn't work out or why these certain things did. But it's looking at your life as if it's an artist's expression. And sometimes we spill a little paint in the wrong way and it turns out to be beautiful. Can you start to look at your life in that way? And start to
I
sit
love
and
that.
surrender and be in this true submission of just like, if not this, something better. It is okay. I'm okay. I know this sucks. I'm allowed my grief. I'm allowed my anger. I'm allowed my sadness. But how can I actually use that as part of this painting of my life so that I can actually
Mm,
start to move momentum forward and create something that's beautiful beyond something that's imaginable?
mic drop, queen. I love that so much. There's so many elements of that. I think, I think like being okay with this and that, like pain and joy, and really kind of to move forward. I think we are so used to this tunnel vision, being in survival mode, that when you get to thriving, you're like, I can have this pain and I can have this joy, I can have this purpose, but I can also remember what happened to me. And it's like about moving forward with both your light and both your shadows. And just what I mentioned about like kind of redirection, not going for things or rejection. Brene Brown, I remember, encouraged to call in that I think it was her daughter did a swimming race or something, and basically she lost the race because she was against like really amazing athletes, and she basically was like, "Oh, so sorry you lost, honey," and she was like, "I didn't lose, I showed up, and that's winning for me." It's like absolutely, and I think that's what's so powerful and important, that when shit hits the fan in life, you get the opportunity to learn, you get the opportunity to reflect and grow and move forward with that. Don't have to stay stuck in, this is a failure, I fucked up, this person rejected me. You get to be like, okay, well, what can I do to move forward with this? How can I integrate this into who I want to be in the future? And I think that's what's, I think I used to, what you said about depth in relationships, I used to always think that, oh God, I'm too deep. People, I can't have surface level conversations. I don't know how to talk about gossiping or the weather and stuff. Not realizing that you don't need to fucking talk about that shit. You can actually go deep. You can be vulnerable. You can talk about the depths of who you are, your soul, what has happened to you. And I think that's what, again, is really difficult to do in survival mode. You've got your walls up, like you mentioned about hyper independence. I was that bitch.
Mm.
But I suppose moving forward with, I love what you mentioned as well about with dating. I think it was actually on your social media about getting more connected with pleasure and enjoying the process of dating. Can you give us some tips or some insight, I suppose, into the dating, the modern world, and how to make it enjoyable and pleasurable?
Yeah. The biggest thing is stop making it about them. Stop trying to get chosen and start being the one that's choosing. first and foremost, the reason I like dating is I learn a new version of me every time. Every person I meet, every conversation I have, every time I go out. It's one of those things where I'm like, ooh, I make the joke all the time with my community. I'm like, every day is Halloween. Who are we today? What are we wearing? Like, this is how it is. But it's like, that's how dating is. And I get like, we live life as if it's a finite game. There's a passing and a failing, success, failure. Like, we're winning, we're losing. Like, there's some freaking timeline that we're missing. And I get it, approaching your 30s, mid 30s, your eggs, whatever story we want to kind of make up in our head. And I get you, those are very real fears and those are very real. And I never want to undermine that. And love is an infinite game. Love is a continuation. I want to know how long I can be in this arena, whether I'm dating one person for a lifetime or if I'm dating multiple people, because that's what God has intended for me. Who the fuck knows? But there is no rush. And if I stop trying to rush it, and I savor this because how many married people do we know that have been married for 10, 15, 20 years? And they're like,
Yeah.
I love this person, but they're so fucking annoying. Like, I would just, like, I want to be single. We want the other side, but like, we're hopefully never going to be single again. Right? Like, once we meet our person, we're never going to be single again. Hopefully, that's literally the point. Why are you rushing that then? It's been 2 to 7 years to whatever. Like, I get it. It's been there's a time stamp. Time is a construct. It's not really real thing. I think it was what's his name? I don't know. It was a podcast. Don't quote me on this, but he gave this concept of time where he makes up his days are actually from 6 to 12, 12 to 6, 6 to 12. So he has 3 days within 21 hours. So he's like, so time is just a contract. It's a human made up thing, which it is. So if you're therefore sitting going, oh, I only have this amount of days to hit this, it's like, no, you don't. You get to make up, because it's a human made thing. You get to redefine what time means. So if you're sitting there going, well, I am now 35 and I haven't met anyone. I haven't It's like, you're putting so I just did a keys to modern dating workshop here in Dallas. And I was talking about this, where it's like, if you go in and you're sitting across from this gorgeous stranger or whatever, and you're already visualizing how your name looks with his last name on it, and you're sitting there and you're like, well, this better be my husband. Therefore, I better pitch myself really freaking well at this job interview for a lifetime that I am now sitting in front of. And you're processing all these things instead of being in their receptive feminine, because how many of us have way better relationships with our friends, our guy friends, our girlfriends? How many of us have way better relationship with them, than we do the guy that we've been dating for the last 2 months? And we're like, I don't know what he's thinking. It's like, because you're not showing up to the table as you. What do you mean? Of course they don't. Like, you have so much pressure on it that you feel like you can't come and be like, this is me. This is so easy. This is so fun. I now trust you. And because I trust you, I'm actually having the best sex of my life. And now we're in this continuation portal of growth and versatility and, not keeping things the same. It's like, stop putting so much fucking pressure on this dating portal and really look at, who am I being in this moment? Something my mentor always says, how chill can I be? How chill can I be right now? What part of my nervous system am I in right now when I'm texting this person, when I'm calling this person? Like, again, there's a lot more into this. I like it because I understand like the science behind it, how our hormones are related to this, and how we can actually not get stuck up in this fucking love is an actual drug, y'all. It dilates our pupils. We get addicted to it. Men don't match the same hormones we get. So this is why we usually hit that 3-month mark and then things fall off. Welcome to hormones. Like, but also understanding yourself in dating is so key. So it's looking at, how can I better understand myself in this dating portal instead of trying to rush it? It's like, one day you're not going to live in this fucking sexy ass house by yourself. You're going to have a kid that is pushing shit everywhere and a husband that won't put his socks away and all these, like, can you just savor the fact for the moment that this is what's happening? And you get to learn, what times do I like to wake up? What do I like to do in the morning routine? What do I like to eat? What times do I like to eat? Who do I like to eat with? Where do I like to go when I want to be alone? Where do I like to go when I want to be adventurous? What conversations do I actually like to have? What parts of this person do I not like? What parts of them do I like? Like, it's about you and how soft you get to feel and how safe, instead of rushing and being like, who will choose me next? And then all of a sudden you're married for 15 years. And you're like, I actually fucking hate this person. Like, I don't feel like myself, it's like, but it's true. How often do we hear that? Right? Like, it's like, you get to make dating fun because it is as simple as that. I know I was just speaking for 3 fucking minutes, but like, You get to make dating fun because it is. It is. Like it's so
Yeah.
fun because you choose it to be as such. Just like I love my job because I choose it to be as such. I love working out because I choose it to be as such. I love eating vegetables because it's all a
Yeah.
choice. I could hate it, but I genuinely enjoy going out, being royally uncomfortable in certain situations because it's a growth portal, and like learning different attachment styles and how am I with this person and who am I in this context? It's like,
Yeah.
again, every day's Halloween. What are we wearing? What are we wearing today? Like,
I love that. It's really refreshing to have such a different perspective on it because the typical conversation is like, I hate dating apps, people are
mhm,
emotionally unavailable, we've got this, that, and the other, people always cheat. And you will always take in things from your environment that like confirms your own belief. So if you want to, but like you mentioned, choice, if you want to believe that dating is shit, that this person is the same as this person, they're all the same, and blah, 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 you will convince yourself of that. And it's so important that you understand that you can think a different way. You can
yeah.
create your own. Go on, sorry.
I'm like, you touched on apps, and I'm like, I feel like we have to talk about apps
Oh yeah.
because it's such a true thing. Like, the thing I always get is, well, I just hate dating apps. And I'm like, then don't go on them. I don't like, why are you complaining then? Because you have
Yeah.
this really cool thing called Delete on your phone. I don't know if you know that. And you have this really cool thing called Two Legs and, an entire system. You can leave your house and go meet someone like a traditional normal human being, but we get so comfortable sitting behind these damn phones that we forget
Mm,
how to hold eye contact with a stranger to invite a conversation. Like, yes,
yeah.
women, you do have to invite them now because we have intimidated men so much for them to come and talk to us. We're like, yeah, I have a boyfriend. And like we scare them off. So it's like open up the invitation, hold eye contact, say hello, do something, create some kind of conversation, invite that in. If you enjoy the apps, if you hate the apps, how can you start to enjoy them? Like if you truly do not believe in going out and doing normal people things, or you're a mom or whatever, like we all have busy schedules. It's like,
Yeah.
can you pour your glass of wine? Can you sit on the couch? Can you actually feel into the vibration of that thing instead of just swiping who's hot and who's not and wondering why this isn't working? It's like, no fucking shit, it's not working.
Mm,
You're just looking at someone's profile picture and thinking that's how it works. It's like, can you get into your body and feel into that energy? And I know that sounds strange, but it's like, we are all energetic human beings. That's the quantum field.
yeah.
Can you sit down, get into your body? Can you make it an intentional thing, not like you're online shopping for your next fucking husband? Like that is not what we're doing. Like is sit down, be intentional, swipe. Like for me, apps don't work. I'm an energetic person. I also don't struggle with I'm single, I'm young. I go out and I meet someone. It's very easy. I'm blessed for that. But I do understand sometimes the apps are helpful for some people. So it's like be more intentional with it. Again, if you're coming from a space of lack and you're coming from a space of need and you're rushing through this process, of course you're not meeting good people. You're not doing
Yeah.
it intentionally. Just like if you don't do anything intentionally and you're rushing through it and you're looking for quick fixes, i.e., your nutrition, and
Mm,
it doesn't work, it's like same fucking thing. Slow down, be okay with it not working right away. Feel into the vibration of said texting, send voice notes. Don't waste your fucking time. Send voice notes, feel into that energy, set up a phone call, feel into that energy. Stop wasting your time and being like, well, I'm losing all this time and whatever on dates. It's like, what's your pregame on that? Like, can you slow things down a little bit and feel into that a little bit more? And that's my TED talk on apps. You're welcome.
No, it is. Even myself, I get these phases of like there's slim pickings, you crack a joke and no one writes back. And then I can choose in that moment to be like, I'm not gonna take that personally. I kind of reached out and it didn't work and that's fine. I don't need to be like, oh my God, what I said was awful, or they think this of me, maybe I should change my picture. And this is really about when you come back to being so connected to yourself, which like we've been talking about, it's not a fucking easy thing. There's a few years of growth there, or a few years of unpacking or healing and everything in between. But when you come back to yourself, you are fine with that. Like, and you don't need to create these stories around this person's like this, or I shouldn't do this. And I love what you said about like the masculine are so afraid of the feminine because we've had our walls up so much. Like it's so
Mhm,
true. It's
mhm.
so true. I've had so many lads that I've spoken to eventually or gotten with or whatever that they've mentioned afterwards that like, "Oh, you're very intimidating." And I'm like, why the fuck am I intimidating? Because I'm tall and I stand up straight and I'm funny and I'm smart and I'm whatever. Like, why is that intimidating? And I guess that's kind of been a nice little humbling moment for me in what you said, that I have switched into the mode of like, okay, well, I'm not going to chase them now, but it is kind of important that we don't even need to think of it as a chase. It can just be like a person talking to a person, similar like your friendships, and having a relationship, having a conversation like that. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Literally.
And
I
yeah,
call it like networking. I'm like, and I always say it, and my friends don't necessarily like it, but I'm like, it's a numbers game. It's a freaking numbers game. Like, if you've
yeah,
ever read the book Go for No for Business, you get a no, that means you're a step closer to the yes. I view the same thing as dating. Not that people are numbers and it doesn't matter, but like you never know how it's going to work out. It could be the person you went, like, I kid you not, the person that was at my event that I just ran, she's like, yeah, I just came here, and like this guy went on a virtual date with, and this guy like I had dated 2 years ago. And I was like, holy pickles, that's so funny. And why are they circling back? Because maybe they have a friend that you'll eventually meet, because you'll meet them out at a bar or at an event next, that they bring a friend to one of my events, and therefore he knows you from there and he introduces you, and then you meet. Like, you never know how it's actually going to work out in your life. So
yeah.
stop putting so much pressure on that poor little chicken nugget soul that needs to be your husband that you just found on the freaking internet and you swiped like it was a freaking shopping cart. Like, no, just breathe. It's okay. Like, I get you. And like, also let yourself, you're allowed to be vulnerable. Like, it's so good to be vulnerable. Like, just don't let that mean anything about you. You know, you have so, again, I forget who says it, but soft center, strong spine. Like, live your life like that, because now in the day and age, it's so rare. And so when it is felt and it is seen and it is in the surrounding environment, like, that is something to cherish. And it's like, don't let the fact that you're getting those harden you. Just have faith that that's one step closer to your next yes.
Yay, I love that so much. We have touched on so much in this podcast, from chronic healing or chronic inflammation and struggling with your health, to eating disorders, to addiction, to just getting you to a version of that noise falling away, of you coming into this version of yourself that is so authentic and powerful and not afraid to be you. And it's so inspiring, and I really think a lot of people will get so much value from this podcast. So thank you for sharing your journey. Really, really appreciate it. I have a question for you though. I think we've kind of spoke about a lot of different things, but what one or three pieces of advice, whichever you align with more, would you give to your younger self?
I would give two. The one I always say is, you can't be at war with your body and win. It's not going to work. We struggled for over a decade with that. But the one that came up after that, tell me intuition, is like, is like, there is no rush. There is no rush.
Yeah.
It's an infinite game. There is no rush.
I love that so much. Being at war with your body is something I can relate to so much, and it's just like, come home to yourself, treat yourself well. Why do you need to be like this? And I think that comes back to like internalizing other people treat you that way. You need to treat yourself that way, but you don't. Like, there is just so much power, and like you can choose today to start a new life, to start to become a different version of yourself, and there is just so much peace in it, so much bloody peace. And I think with the rushing thing, it really relates to like feeling like you're running from danger, that kind of trauma, that nervous system, that you think everything needs to happen now and you need to prove yourself and you need to chase success and all that good stuff. But it's not going to bring you back to that peace, to feeling at home in yourself. And yeah, just amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. But can you tell my listeners where people can find you and maybe some of your programs as well?
Thank you so much, so much for having this and having this space. It really does. I love this stuff so much. My personal Instagram is it's Laura Patricia Martin. So ITS Laura Patricia Martin. We also have a podcast called Healing to Happy. I'm gonna have to get you on. We have to riff on gut health. I think I'm gonna send you a link after this. And then that also has an Instagram, Healing to Happy. So Healing TO Happy. I like to say like that one's where like the sciencey bits hang out, and then you get to go and see my lifestyle and like how the shit's applied over on my personal one. So you can come hang out there. Yeah, or both. You can just do both.
Get a girl that can do both. Well, thank you so much for coming. As always, everyone would love to hear your thoughts. Leave some feedback in the comment section, and then give Laura a follow, give her some love as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.